Guys, how's it going? It's Al, week 17 on DraftKings, and we're going to go over 5 top stacks that I think that you should be focusing on in tournaments. It doesn't mean that they're the only 5 tournaments that you can play in NFL DFS, or top 5 stacks that you can only play these 5. Play whatever stacks you want. These are just the 5 that stand out most to me, both from a median and a ceiling projection. So they have good floors with access to really high ceilings on kind of a weird slate, even though there are 13 games. I like the larger slates as opposed to the shorter ones. I'm happy that there's no Saturday games this week, because it allows us to get a little bit further away from the chalk where we want to. And there are a lot of running backs who are going to be in play this week based on their salaries, opponent matchups, volume that they project to see, which means that the double stacks lend themselves to really great value, good leverage, and that there are places that we can get different. So thank you guys for being here. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, and let's go.
He's a legend.
The SmizzGang Listener League enters week 17, 3,000 entries. You got to go to smizzle.tv/links in order to find that link. That is down below in the pinned comment. Go drop a like on that pinned comment just to let me know that you see it, because it is a great tournament. In fact, the best tournament that exists on DraftKings, but it's not in the lobby. $10 to enter, 3 max. Absolutely no rake, and I'll shout out the top 10 finishers on the fantasy football channel. That link to there is also available at smizzle.tv/links. It's your one-stop shop for everything that I do, including our charity fundraiser for No Kid Hungry. We are fast approaching $50,000 in total on the season, which will trigger another $10,000 match from me. And if we can get $10,000 more donated by the time New Year's Eve ends, by the time the ball drops, that will trigger another $10,000 match for me. So if you have $1, $5, $10, $100, $500, or $1,000, we've had great donation participation the last week or so to try and get us to everywhere that we're going to go. So if you have enjoyed the content this football season, if you have won money and need a tax write-off, every donation is 100% tax deductible. Go to smizzle.tv/charity. Donate to No Kid Hungry today, who provide basically food for food insecure kids all across America. So be a part of something bigger than yourself and donate today. The top stack on the week is Jared Goff and these Detroit Lions. They play at home, and taking a look at what he has done at home, 23.1 DraftKings points per game and 13.3 on the road. So 18.6 on the year, but they're just so much better at home. It is what it is. Jared Goff is a quarterback who needs to exist in the most optimal situations for him to thrive. This has always been the thing. He does not do well against pressure. Guess what? The Bears don't pressure opposing quarterbacks. He needs really good weather. It's a freaking dome. It's the perfect place to play. He also has played better at home versus on the road for the entirety of his career. He is only 5,600 in the highest totaled game on the week, and not like by a half a point, by a bunch. Bears Lions, I believe, is 52 unless something has changed. Vikings Packers at 47. Like, it's another time where it's like 5-6 points higher expected than any other team or any other game. So implied point totals for teams directly lead to fantasy scoring. Finding a bring back player on Chicago is possible because of how giving, let's say it is the giving season, right? How giving the Detroit Lions have been. So if we plug Jared Goff in there, you also can stack him with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Double-digit targets seemingly on the way every single week. I would be shocked if he doesn't get 10 plus targets. And even when he doesn't, he still gets 9. Plays out of the slot. We have seen an uptick in his red zone usage this year, but when they get close, they don't really throw it. They do run it. So you have to have him score from outside the 5-yard line, because once they get close, Dan Campbell wants to start biting kneecaps and running the football. So hopefully he scores from a little bit deeper. So plugging him as a value play is fine. DJ Chark has done very well with 5 or more targets for 4 of the last 5 weeks. He reached the 100-yard bonus last week. 94 against Minnesota, 98 against Jacksonville. Throwing the ball against the Jets is very tough, and that game was on the road. Expect him, I personally expect him to be higher than 10 fantasy points this week, and we know what his ceiling is. It's 100 yards and a touchdown, which could get him over 20 points. Plugging him into that, I'm not really going to focus on the tight ends, and if you really want to get spicy and think that DeAndre Swift is going to see an expanded role in the running game and in the passing game, as he has recently with 8, 6, 4, 9, and 5 targets each of the last 5 games, you can utilize him, as he does project to get over like 15% of the target market share at this point. I do not think that Jamison Williams is running enough routes or playing enough snaps to be viable. He can score a touchdown as a one-off, as he did here, but they are really bringing the rookie along very, very slowly, less than 12 months out from that ACL injury. Let's go over to Underdog Fantasy. We'll play a card on this game. Why not? Very, very slim pickings right now on what we have here. But if you don't have an account over at Underdog Fantasy, you can use that promo code ALSMIZZLE. That's ALSMIZZLE, all one word. You get up to $100 first deposit bonus on your first deposit to the site, which you can then use on these pick'ems or anything else. It's essentially like a free bet. So you might as well go over to Underdog Fantasy and play it. I like to play hires because I'm an idiot, even though lowers are definitely sharper because there's way more ways to get there. But I like watching good football. So I'm going to go higher, and let's go higher on Justin Fields as well to bring that back. 3 plays that correlate with one another for $50 to win $300. I'll submit that. Go check out everything they have over at Underdog Fantasy today. Trevor Lawrence, he's like Hansel. He's so hot right now. He's so hot right now. He has thrown a touchdown, a run for over 30 yards in like 6 of his past 8 games, multiple touchdowns in 4 of his last 6 games. He has reached over 28 fantasy points on DraftKings 3 of the last 5 games. He squares off against Houston, and all of his pass catchers project as values in cash games this week. Now, I don't believe that all of them are going to get there. They're just cheap enough to get there. And Trevor Lawrence at 6,200, in my opinion, is going to be a major leverage play off of, I'm going to guess, plus or minus about 25% on Travis Etienne Jr. this weekend. And because they don't throw the ball a ton to Travis Etienne Jr., he just doesn't correlate very well with Trevor Lawrence, which means that we can get to Lawrence, get off of all the Travis Etienne chalk that's going to be there. Now, I don't think that we're going to see 40% plus on any of the running backs because I think that there are 10 to 12 really good values at running back this week. It is a deep week in the running back pool. But if you wanted to get off of Travis Etienne, because not all 12 of them are going to slap. If they do, the winning score is going to be like 270 points this week. But to get off of that, Christian Kirk allows you a high target floor and ceiling. Zay Jones has been phenomenal outside of the one game against the Jets. The Jets are the Russian judge, who I am totally fine throwing out performances from wide receivers against them as they are so very strong on the outside. Marvin Jones Jr. is nothing more than a dart throw to me. He doesn't really have the same floor or ceiling as any of those other two. And Evan Ingram over the last 4 weeks has been the best tight end in football from a week in, week out perspective, from a target perspective, averaging more points per game over the last 4 weeks than Travis Kelce is on the season. Kelce is at like 20.9 DraftKings points on the year, and Evan Ingram's at like 22 fantasy points the last 4 games. Now, I'm not saying he's going to get you 22 fantasy points, but he's also like half the salary at that point. So all of these guys, with maybe the exception of Marvin Jones Jr., project as a value. You can find somebody on Houston to bring this back with if you wanted to. I prefer playing it that way because for Trevor Lawrence to have, this is why. Because people are going to say, well, there's nobody on Houston that I want to bring it back with. If you don't bring back a Trevor Lawrence double stack, you need a very, very, very specific outcome. You need Trevor Lawrence to have 4 touchdown passes in the first half and 300 yards in like a 35-0 game to make it worthwhile to pivot off of Etienne, to get onto a Trevor Lawrence double, and then you need Houston to score like 3 points the entire game and not rack up points or yards or anything else like that. If Trevor Lawrence has 30 plus fantasy points, for him to have 30 plus fantasy points, he needs that other team to push him just a little bit, right? Giving up 34, 22, 27 in those games where he kind of really went bonkers. So you're praying, if you're playing Trevor Lawrence stacks, that Houston is going to push them a little bit, score a couple of touchdowns. 14, 17, 21 points for Houston in that game. And if they score touchdowns, somebody is scoring those touchdowns, which means that if you have them on your team, it is very easy to benefit from both sides of that stack. And that's why we double stack and bring back, because we're playing for the perfect quarterback outcome. There's no winning if your quarterback has 17 fantasy points in a game when you are stacking with them. So you're not playing for those 17-point games, those 21-point games. We're not playing for the median. We're playing for the ceiling. And when we get to that ceiling, what else has to occur? Mike White is not the puke stack. I don't know that I have a puke stack this week. Some weeks there's no puke stack because they're just not viable. But Mike White has been actually good. He's been fine, and he's been much better than Zach Wilson, right? Because guess what? He can just deliver the football. Imagine that. If you just get the ball to your wide receivers and then let them do stuff with the ball in their hands, it adds to the amount of scoring that you can have as a quarterback. 300 yards plus in 2 of the 3 games he's played this year. He got absolutely folded in half and his innards turned to mush against Buffalo, but Seattle doesn't put that type of pressure on opposing quarterbacks, so it's very likely that Mike White is going to be able to get that ball into the hands of somebody like Garrett Wilson, who is very, very good at football and what he does. I am very excited for what Garrett Wilson can do as a second and a third year wide receiver looking down the road. But this week particularly, he's still only 5,500 on DraftKings because of the previous 2 weeks where Zach Wilson was a starter and he didn't do very well. So his price has come back down to the cheapest point it's been since week 13, where he was coming off of 2 really great games. It's very possible that people just don't play him. I don't think that's possible. I give the public more credit for being smart because it's such a projection-based game at this point in daily fantasy that if Garrett Wilson Jr. is popping as a value, it's a very projection-based game in DFS. So people are going to play Garrett Wilson because he will pop as a good point per dollar play at 5,500. Corey Davis, 3,700, coming off a 7-target game, is definitely in play here. And Elijah Moore as well at 3,500. So you get a really good value stack here with 2 players, and there's players to bring it back with on Seattle as well if you wanted to go up against those outside wide receivers, outside cornerbacks, knowing that certain wide receivers are somewhat matchup proof, right? Like DK Metcalf, as good as Sauce is, and he is great, it's going to be very tough to stop DK Metcalf from getting his 9, 10, 11 targets. And he's just such a big body that he can box anybody out as well as get deep. He's done it against people have faded DK Metcalf against like the best cornerbacks in the league for the last 2 seasons, and like it doesn't always work out. So he does have ceiling possibility. Tyler Lockett coming back runs a lot of out of the slot, which is where you kind of want to attack them. If you wanted to go with a value tight end where you're hoping for touchdown upside, Disley and Noah Fant on the other side are in play as well. But this Mike White stack, curiously, not the puke stack. Usually I put a quarterback up here, but like I just want to get Justin Jefferson in my lineups because all he does is score 30 points. And the rhetoric is that they want him to get all the records and they're going to do what they can. Now, you can consider this one the puke stack if you want to, because looking back at his history, so I'm just going to plug Justin Jefferson in there. Kirk Cousins, when playing in Green Bay, has not performed well historically. Like I understand that. Like, it's a later game. It's one of the afternoon games. So like, Kirk Cousins is the Morty Seinfeld of quarterbacks. Like all you have to do to make him do poorly is to play later in the afternoon because he gets tired, because he probably wakes up at 4 a.m. because he has the quarterback body of a 65-year-old. It is what it is. He's AARP. Fine. I get it. But like, we know that he can post good games. And if they're going to force feed Justin Jefferson in this spot, and he has another game like this where he gets, let's say 11 or more targets, something that he's done since week 9, all but the game against Dallas where they got run out of Jerry's world. 34, 33, 36, 32, 38, 28, 18, like, and again, 18 points against the Jets, right? This is the best passing defense on the outside that exists in the league at this point. So I want Justin Jefferson. He's extremely expensive, which I think is going to hold down his percentages just a little bit in tournaments because it's way easier to get to other correlated stacks than going there. KJ Osborne at 4,600 has seen some ups and downs. Adam Thielen has seen some ups and downs. And at tight end, Hawkinson is only 5,400. I believe that Hawkinson is the second highest priced tight end on the slate, with like Travis Kelce being 8,100 and then Hawkinson 2,700 lower. We've seen his ceiling 2 times this year where he has gotten you a game-winning, position-separating score, averaging 13.8 on the year, 12.7. He has been targeted very consistently since coming over from the Lions to the Vikings, and is a fantastic play. If you wanted to go with Cousins, Jefferson, Hawkinson, I do want to mention something on the way back. There's a lot of injuries to deal with on Green Bay. Christian Watson would be a great play if he plays. He did not practice again on Thursday. There's conflicting reports whether he was at practice or not from the coach and from the beat writers. Monitor the Friday practice report with Christian Watson, because if he does not play this weekend, that opens up a lot more targets and routes for Cobb, Dobbs, and Alan Lazard. Our puke stack of the week is exactly those guys. Like, and the reason it's weird to say that Aaron Rodgers is a puke stack, right? Because he's Aaron freaking Rodgers and he's really, really good. However, this category right here, fantasy points. Remember what I said earlier in the video? If your quarterback gets you between 17 and 21 fantasy points, you're probably not winning a tournament. He has not scored 21 fantasy points this year. Not once. This is a running based team. does have 24 touchdowns. He certainly has the ability. He just doesn't have the talent on the outside to make it happen. But that doesn't mean that can't happen in two ways, right? We've seen guys come out of the blue for like a 29 or a 30-point fantasy day. And if we lose Watson for this game, which I don't know if we will or don't know if we won't, Watson is going to be the core play that everybody's going to want to play around him. And if he's gone, now people aren't going to want to play the players around him. Mercedes Lewis, 2 targets last week and a touchdown. Tunyon, 2 targets last week, no touchdown. Lazard has been up and down, 11 targets, and bookending 2, 6, and 3. However, if Christian Watson is out, guys like Lazard, guys like Romeo Doubs, and guys like Randall Cobb provide us that opportunity at more routes and more targets anytime Christian Watson isn't going to be on the field. You can take a shot at one of those tight ends if you want, but I believe that they are completely touchdown dependent and boom or bust. And then it allows you the opportunity, because of how cheap it is to play those guys, to get yourself to Justin Jefferson or to TJ Hawkins. Sorry, he's the 3rd highest price guy behind Kittle. One or the other coming back on the other side. So you can still get them without playing Kirk Cousins there, because Minnesota, another accelerator, another multiplier of quarterback scoring because of how horrendous they've been on defense and how little pressure they apply to opposing quarterbacks. And if you're going to give Aaron Rodgers time to pick your defense apart, this could be the game where he does have 25 plus fantasy points, which would be more than enough at his salary plus the salary of his receivers to get us that tournament winning ceiling with a bring back play. So thank you guys for watching. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.